Economics, Standard 12, Unit 7, International Economics continued. Let us learn today balance of trade and balance of payments. Balance of trade and balance of payments are two different concepts in the subject of international trade. What is balance of trade? Balance of trade refers to the total value of a country's exports of commodities and total value of imports of commodities. So balance of trade means, or it refers to total value of commodities of a country, that is exports and imports of commodities of a country. So it deals with only exports and imports of commodities of a country, of commodities of a country. And since it deals with commodities, goods, it can be easily seen and also well felt by hands. It can be verified physically by custom authorities of your country. So it is also known as visible trade. It is also known as visible trade. We can easily see the commodities and goods, the movements of goods, commodities between countries can be easily seen and felt. So it is known as visible trade. And there are two types of balance of trade. And the first type is favorable balance of trade and the second one is unfavorable. So favorable, so easily you can understand, since balance of trade deals with exports and imports, if exports exceed the imports, automatically it will be favorable. So there are two types of balance of trade, favorable. So under favorable balance of trade, you can just think of that. Exports exceeds imports. Exports exceeds imports. So if exports of commodities of a country exceeds the imports of commodities of that country, then we can easily say that that country enjoys favorable balance of trade. Then what is unfavorable balance of trade? If total value of commodity exports of a country is less than the total value of commodity imports of that country, then that country is just having unfavorable balance of trade. So another, that is unfavorable. So under unfavorable balance of trade, we can say that if the country imports, the total values of the goods of imports are just imports exceeds exports, or exports are less than imports. Okay, so imports exceeds exports, or we can just call it as exports are less than imports. So in this we can easily understand that a country enjoys a favorable balance of trade when its exports commodities exceeds the imports commodities. The same country or any country, that is, if its imports of commodities are higher than or exceeds the exports of commodities, then we can just say the country is in unfavorable balance of trade. So this is what we learn, that is balance of trade. Now balance of payments. What's the difference between balance of trade and balance of payments? Balance of payments, it's a systematic record of a country's income and financial transactions with the rest of the world over a period of time. So, systematic records of a country's income and financial transactions with the rest of the world, with the other countries over a period of time is known as balance of payments. The second type is balance of payments. So what is balance of payments? Balance of payments is a systematic record of a country's economic and financial transactions with the rest of the world, with other countries over a period of time. It's a systematic record of a country's economic and financial transactions with other countries over a period of time. So that is what we call it as balance of payments. So automatically, since it is payments, there will be receipts, and so credit and debit transaction. So there are two types of transactions take place: credit transaction and debit transaction. Payment received from a foreign country is a credit transaction. A payment to a foreign country is a debit transaction. So credit and debit transactions. So transactions takes place in two ways, that is credit and debit. Okay, so payment received. Transactions. Payment received or what we call it as payment received from a country is known as credit transaction. Payment to a foreign country is known as debit transaction. Now, the credit side, the main items comes under the credit side. What are they? That is exports of goods and services on credit side. On credit side, exports of goods and services. Goods and services. Second, services, that you have to remember one thing. Second, the transfer receipts. Transfer receipts. So the transfer receipts that we receive in the form of a gift, as etc. from foreigners, foreign countries, borrowing from abroad, foreign direct investment, and official sale of reserve assets, including gold, to foreign countries and international agencies. Now, the principal items of the debit side, imports of goods and services. So, from debit side, imports of goods and services. So, for this, they have to pay to the foreign country. So, debit side, a country has to pay to the other country. So, it deals with imports. Imports of goods and services. And services. So, in a credit side, transfer received, that is what we call it as transfer receipts. But whereas on debit side, transfer payments. So, transfer payments. So, whatever we pay, that is to the foreign countries, that is transfer payments to foreigners, foreign countries, lending residents, that is, or lending to foreign countries, investments by the residents in foreign countries, and official purchase of reserve assets or gold from foreign countries and international agencies, all comes under debit side, that is transfer payments. Okay, now let us see what is favorable balance of payments and what is unfavorable balance of payments. Of course, it is easy to understand. When receipts exceed payments, it is favorable balance of payments, or it is favorable, that is what we call it as receipts exceeds payments. So when receipts exceed payments, we call it as balance of favorable balance of payments. So receipts exceed payments. So this is easily we can remember R B. So X equal to, that is greater than 1. Okay. R divided by P greater than 1. Then automatically it is favorable balance of payments. Unfavorable balance of payments. When receipts are less than what we call it is payments. So receipts less than payments. This we call it as unfavorable balance of payments. So, less than 1. So, this is easily we can understand. So, balance of payments, when receipts exceed payments, favorable. When receipts are less than payments, then it is unfavorable balance of payments. The three important categories of components of balance of payments are, that is the current account, second the capital account, third the official settlement account or official reserve assets account. Official settlement account or official reserve accounts. Okay, now let us see. Just have an idea of the differences between balance of trade and balance of payments. So, balance of trade refers to the total value of commodities of exports and commodities of imports of a country. But whereas in balance of payments, it is a systematic record of a country's economic and financial transactions with other countries over a period of time. Secondly, only exports and imports of commodities are mentioned in balance of trade. But whereas in balance of payments, transactions are carried out by two different, the form of credit and debit transactions. Okay. Now, the movement of commodities between countries can be easily seen and felt by hands. And so we call balance of trade is known as visible trade. But here, the movements cannot be seen, but exports of goods and services in the form of transfer receipts are shown in credit transaction. Imports of goods and services in the form of transfer payments is shown in debit transaction. And here, finally, in balance of trade, when exports exceed the imports, then we call it as a favorable balance of trade. But in balance of payments, when receipts exceed payments, then we call that balance of trade is a favorable balance, balance of payments is a favorable balance of payments. So this is what all these important differences between balance of trade and balance of payments. Let us continue the lesson in the next class.